Yo, what's up? It's your homeboy Negamuzu. I'm bringing you the machining deck profile. Normally you see me being flailing about, being passionate, and being really loud, crazy with stupid jokes. For this video, we're not going to be dealing with any of that, alright? This is something serious. This is serious because I've seen a lot of bad advice floating about on the internet, and a lot of people just giving false information to newbies, alright? So with that, I'm going to show you my deck profile, try to get through the deck profile really quick for those of you who just want that. And if you want more than the deck profile, after the deck profile, I'm going to have another few minutes where I just talk about combos and stuff with the deck, alright? So let's move on to the deck. Alright, on to the deck profile. My starter is Machining Little B. Really like it. It works great with my backup grade 3. And you need machinings. This deck is completely machininged out, alright? For my grade 3 lineup, I run 1, 2, 3, 4 Spark Hercules. One of them is SP. Really happy about that. Got a good trade. I run 4 Stag Beetle. Classic boss. Very powerful. Really good in early game. You don't want to sit on it too much. You want to go straight to Spark Hercules as fast as you can, but you use this to push out some damage and fill up your field. It's really good, and it's great if you top deck it in late game when you're out of counterblasts. My grade 2 lineup: 4 Machining Armor Beetle. It's good for loading soul and the consistent stun. I was teching this at 3, but I decided to bump it up to 4 because as much as Tarantula gives me the threat, the on-hit threat, sometimes I really just need something stunned. And this is on call, throw something in soul, and you stun something, alright? And it can also be used on ride if you ride it, but now I was going to be able to use that. For my 12k attacker, you really need this. It's a good stand target. This is a stand deck, and it helps with making good columns against 13k base because you really just throw anything behind this and you've got a good number. Three Machining Tarantula. I run this at 3 because I need to conserve my counterblasts and because my other grade 2s are really necessary. On hit to a Vanguard, counterblast the Machining, and I stun an opponent's rear guard. It requires Machining Counterblast, but doesn't require a Machining Vanguard. But since I'm machining out my deck, that doesn't really get to be a problem. For my grade 1s, I run, that's it. I run 4 Machining Ladybug. That's my quintet wall. This works really great in the deck because being able to keep my grade 3s in my hand means that when my opponent starts trying to hit my rear guards because they can't deal with my field and my pressure, I'm going to have cards to replace them with, and it means I can hang on to my stag to be able to use in late game. Yeah, it doesn't always guarantee that I'm going to block the attack. Sometimes I may have to drop a card, but 9 times out of 10, this will generate, if nothing else, a 2 pass, which is really good for Counterblast 1, and I can conserve hand. Man, you know, machinings. Machining Black Soldier, my 10k attacker. It's good because if you call it out of soul with Stag Beetle, you could still be able to use it as a booster or an attacker. If you call it out of soul with Stag Beetle, call this and Little B, that's plus 12 to the Stag. Little B go into soul, restand this, and it can be a 13k attacker, which is really good. It's a good stand target, and it can hit against cross rides in that situation. For Machining Caucasus, honestly, I wish I had more of this card. I wish there was another card with this effect. It's a really great effect. Grade 1 6k. If it boosts a machining unit's attack that hits an opponent's Vanguard, I stun a rear guard for free. The only cost is it has to boost a machining. It gives your rear guards on-hit threat, and putting this behind a Stag after you Stag affected stupid numbers is really great because that almost guarantees a stun, or it forces usually 3 cards out of your opponent's hand, which is really, really good. In my tech spot, I run 2 copies of Machining Mosquito. That's really good for the fact that it's a grade 1/7, so it's a good booster, and also it's soul charges. On call or ride, soul charge 1. Soul charging becomes really good for a lot of the late game plays with Spark Hercules, and also for setting up for Stag Beetle.
I really like it. I don't like the ditch and draw. This just performs really well for me, alright? Now for my trigger lineup. I said it was a stand variant, and I was not kidding. That is 8 stands, 8 Machining Cicada. Machining Cicada's effect says you can run up to 16 of him. I chose to run 8 because I wanted to make space for critical. Its effect is on call. If you have a machining in your soul, it gets +3 until end of turn. It's the old school machining effect. You can use it in a pinch as a booster or in a big pinch as an attacker, and then next turn use Armor Beetle to throw it into soul or something of that nature. You don't want to do that too much because then you're losing a 10k shield out of your hand, and Mega Colony is all about conserving the hand and generating hand advantage by stopping your opponent's pressure. For Machining Scorpion, criticals give threat to your early game hits and your late game hits. Crits are crits. They're good. They help set up for great plays. And it's a nice surprise because if you're just running all stands, at some point your opponent's going to stop guarding when you hit big numbers with Stag, and it doesn't help. And obviously, for Machining Bombix, it's my heal trigger. We finally get a heal trigger that's not something stupid and creepy, and yeah. Alright, now, that's the end of the deck profile portion of this. Everything after this is going to be a discussion about strategies for the deck and general ideas and frequently asked questions. If you just came for the deck profile, you can cut out here. Like, comment, subscribe. We're going to get you some more stuff. If you want to get some more in-depth stuff, stay tuned. It's coming up right now.
Hey everybody, I'm bringing you the discussion part of this video. We had to change locations. You know, lighting's just a little bit weird here. You know what? Machining Gigabolt. Thank you. Alright. Moving on. Stuff about the deck. Some of you are probably wondering if you've watched through everything up to this point. There's a lot of questions. Why am I not running this card? The Break Red. A lot of people are going off on a buzz about it. I cannot deny how powerful this card is. And I'm not even going to start to. The thing is, Bushiroad kind of shafted Mega Colony. Our Break Ride is not part of our archetype, you know, because, you know, we sit there in the corner with Pale Moons, you know. The Break Ride is great in generic decks like Giraffa or the Unbeatable Mutant, and I mean, you could even run it in Martial Arts Mutant. It's very powerful, but the thing is, the 12 and 10k attackers are very key for the machining strategy, and with that to stop working when you're sitting on the Break Ride hurts. You become so hard to have a viable stand target that it didn't work out. And because Spark Hercules is so restrictive in his counterblasting, I have damage checked it. Even when I only ran 1, I damage checked it when I needed a machining so many times. It hurt. Or I soul charged it when I needed a machining to soul blast. It just hurt. I really don't recommend running it at all in the machining deck because it's not a machining. Spark Hercules, like I said before, it is the most restricting Mega Colony Vanguard in the history of Mega Colony, honestly. Its effects are so limited in activation. Your deck has to be built in a certain way, and you have to play in a very specific direction. But in exchange for those restrictions, it generates the highest power payout of just about anything Mega Colony wise. And plus 10 and a crit for Counterblast 2. Yes, it has to be Counterblast 2 machining, but it defines that idea of a special Counterblast. You have to Counterblast specific cards in order to get something that's honestly undercosted at that point. Stag Beetle is powerful in late game because you can Superior Call 2 things out that may not both be of use this turn, but they can be of use next turn. It helps bouncing back from field destruction, and it's really good. One thing that people don't realize is that because I'm not running a Quintet Wall, I'm not going to be pitching my grade 3s. I mean, it's because I'm not running a Perfect Guard, sorry, and I'm running a Quintet Wall, I'm not going to be pitching my grade 3s as a cost, so I'm going to have them in my hand to either ride for effects in late game or to replace my front row. Running 4 quintet walls means you're always going to have at least one grade 3 in hand. Now, yes, that means there's a card in your hand that's going to be dead shield-wise. But when your opponent's trying to kill your columns and they are attacking your front row rear guards, you can let those die because you're generally going to have a good attacker to throw in its place. If your grade 3s are not going to make a good attacker in the front row, you might have bigger problems. Some of you may have noticed Armor Beetle. Armor Beetle is a card that I'm not seeing a lot of. Armor Beetle on call, choose a Mega Colony Rearguard and put it in your soul if you have a Mega Colony Vanguard and stun an opponent's rearguard. What is stun? Or as it say in the anime, paralyze. That is, you target something and it does not restand during your opponent's stand phase. Can you target something that is currently standing? Yes, you can. What happens? Nothing unless you find a way to rest it before the end of your turn. How do you rest things? Well, currently your best option is Sparky's effect. Soul Blast a machining, rest your opponent's rear guards, and give +2 to Sparky. Sparky, Spark Hercules. That's powerful. You can Soul Blast 5 and give your Vanguard +10. It helps when you run out of counterblasts and you don't have a stag in hand. And your counterblasts are very precious. You're going to need your special counterblast for Tarantula. On hit, counterblast the machining, stun something. Your opponent's not going to want to let that hit and they're going to waste hand. It's a 9k, but it's really good. Cards I'm not running. Machining Papillon, the grade 2 8k on-call stun something. Yes, the stun is free, but it is an 8k, which is both hard to defend and harder to use. Unless I'm running the vanilla 8, which is not a machining. Other cards I'm not using would be the Ditch and Draw. I can't even remember the name. Very good card, but I felt that the Soul Charge was more needed in order to get things in Soul for my big pushes. That's why I run Mosquito. Mosquito helps with loading Soul. I was running more Mosquito. I cut it back because it wasn't doing as much, and when I cut it back, I increased my count of Armor Beetle. The starter's effect is Axe Skill, slide it into Soul, and if I do this, I can target a machining rearguard and restand it. If I restand a machining rearguard in this way, it gets +3. So I can't just give +3 for free. I have to target something that's rested. Thankfully, I do have a card that calls them at rest from the Soul. My stands are powerful because I'm going to have a lot of rearguards that are good stand targets because they give +3 even if I call a grade 2 9k out. If I restand it, it becomes a 12 until end of turn. That essentially gives a lot of things the old machining effect. The old machining effect was on call, if you have a machining in your soul, give +3 until end of turn. It give you good Blitzcrank, and it was just a lot of pressure. Speaking of pressure, Caucasus. Caucasus does wonders. You throw this behind your 12k attacker, and you can just do wonders. Your opponent will not want to let that hit. It's really funny when I get a whole field of that in the back. People just burn through their hand. And stand triggers are great because the stand trigger has the old school machining effect. On call, it gets +3. And that's very powerful. It makes it a 7k booster. A lot of times you can call it, and then next turn Armor Beetle it into Soul. So you have something for Soul Blasting the following turn. If you have a good booster behind Spark Hercules, if you Soul Blast 2, it's going to give you the next stage. By next stage, I mean your opponent's going to have to expend another 5k to guard it effectively. It's just going to call it. A lot of thought goes into it, and it's very important to know your matchups. 9 times out of 10, you're going to have a really great matchup against Aquaforce because you just stun a lot of the restanders. You know, you stun the Basils, you stun the Diamantes, you stun the Tidal Assaults, you stun the Wheel Assaults, the Blue Storm Tidal Assault thingamadoober. You'll know it when you see it. Huh? Spyros. I don't care. I stun it. I don't see very much of it. He really goes back to the SB quote of Spark Hercules, who said it was all right to move. That being said, some decks, a lot of heavy retire decks hurt, but they don't hurt that much because I can stag and refill my field up. Even if I don't have a way to restand them, and I don't do the consistent reloading play, I can just get a lot of power. Generally in late game, In early to late game, whenever you stag, your Vanguard column is going to be swinging for 31 or 32. That's a hard number to block. And you do that in late game when your opponents burn through 2 to 3 of their perfect guards, or they're down to 4 cards in hand. Even if they perfect guard, that brings them down to 2, and that just puts them in a bad position. Things that kill the deck would be, like I said, a lot of effect destruction, stand triggers. Any deck that will defensively check stand triggers hurts, honestly. I'm running a little bit short on time, but the list goes on and on. Nova Grapplers are great matchup because you just, hey, there's what's it, Brainy something or other?
Brainy Papio.
Brainy Papio, yeah. The grade 2 9K that on hit does stuff, stun it. Generic answer is only stun your opponent's Vanguard booster if you intend to block the Vanguard next turn. That being said, stunning rear guard attackers is good, especially if you want to force your opponent to intercept with them. And when you're facing against a reverse deck, you just stun the units you want them to lock. That's it for this segment. Sorry if I droned on for a little bit. This is Negamuzu bringing you your Mega Colony Minute.